Trouble. It says having trouble connecting, but okay, I think we're live now. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live. Sorry, we're about a minute late. My name is Ash. I'm the founder of productiveinsights.com. And today we are going to talk about something that is very topical and potentially controversial. We're going to talk about the F word and why it is such a taboo in digital marketing. And the word we're talking about is funnel. So I want to lay a little bit of context here. So I want to talk a little bit about the pre-internet sales world. I can hear a bit of audio. If you guys can, uh, okay, cool. Um, so pre-internet, if you wanted to say buy a pair of shoes or something, you would go into a physical shoe store and you would talk to the salesperson, and the salesperson would give you a little bit of a rundown on the shoes. Maybe they asked you some questions about whether you're pronate or supinate and those sorts of things. Thank you, Ellison. Nice to see you on here. And uh, they had some opportunity to do a bit of a transfer of value, if you like, and they were able to help you make a good purchase decision. And if you felt like the salesperson was honest and sincere, you probably paid a couple of extra dollars to that person, even though the guy down the road was selling it for a bit cheaper, because you had a bit of a relationship. So product and feature discovery was not exclusively in the hands of the buyer. It was to some degree also in the seller's control. After the internet entered the fray, you increasingly, when you wanted to buy a pair of shoes, you would go online and you would type in best shoes, and then you might get some content about shoes. Maybe the content talked about whether you're pronate, supinate, etc., and try to help you solve your pre-purchase problems or challenges. And the best content won, thanks to Google. And then you would purchase the pair of shoes, and the first time the seller would discover you as a potential individual that they could communicate with was probably at the checkout cart when you entered your name and your card details and so on and so forth. Now, this created a problem, and the problem was, how can a seller sell to a person that they don't know exists as an individual? So enter content marketing. And increasingly, we started to see more and more content on the web, and the quality of content continued to improve, and it still does to this day. And the best content won, and the most helpful content won. And then that eventually led to some version of what is called a funnel. So to explain a funnel, you've got it. You can imagine like a literal funnel. So you have a whole bunch of prospects at the top, people maybe at different levels of interest in terms of purchasing your product. In this case, let's say shoes, and you would then provide certain amounts of information and content and help, and a certain proportion of them would move further down the funnel closer to the purchase decision, and it would get narrower and narrower, and eventually a small proportion of those people would buy. And as the funnel started to become more and more popular, people started to really try to cram people through the funnel. The digital marketers started to just pour more and more content out there, and they started measuring every aspect, every click, and started to really in my opinion, rely too much on metrics, to the point where we are getting bombarded with customized offers, and increasingly we don't have time to really decide on what kind of product to buy, because we're getting so much relevant information and such a high proportion of them are offers. And that's why the funnel has come to be taboo in the digital marketing world. HubSpot came up with an interesting spin on this, and they said that if you take the bottom of the funnel, where you have your buyers, your people who have already bought your product, and you twist it back into the top, you basically have these buying customers, and you really look after them with great quality customer service. They will tell their friends and family and so on about what a great service you provide, what great service you provide. And that effectively takes the bottom of the funnel and puts it back into the top because they bring in new prospects. And so you end up with a flywheel. Now, as I understand it, that was also discussed in Good to Great, in the book Good to Great. So that's a bit of context around why we need to talk about the F word, the funnel. I've got a couple of people here on the panel, and I'm very happy to have them join us. They're all members of the Productive Insights membership community. So I'd love to throw it to Karen first and ask Karen, what are her thoughts on the sales funnel, and how does she? What are your experiences, Karen, with the funnel, and what do you think we should be doing in marketing these days? Do you have any thoughts, any advice, any anecdotes, suggestions, experience?
I was hoping you wouldn't go to me first, but anyway, here we are. Definitely not a marketing expert, one little bit. But
we want your opinion as a non-marketing expert. You're an HR expert, but...
Yeah, so I suppose in HR, and Bobby probably sees similar things being in recruitment, people aren't always ready to buy. So for me in HR, I might have a conversation with somebody who wants to find out a little bit about, HR services. They might have heard from somebody else or about me and my business, or somehow they've found me. And I think it's important that there's some sort of funnel that they can go into, and I could definitely be better at this. So I can keep communicating with them until they are ready. So I've got some people that I spoke to a year ago, and then all of a sudden they'll pop up. And I've had a couple of emails this week, actually. I spoke to a year ago, now I'm ready. I need an employment contract, or I need some policies, or whatever it might be. So then I can give them the advice, and if I can't help them, I can steer them in the right direction. But yeah, I think having that funnel and making sure that people are in there somewhere along the journey, that you're staying in touch with them and you're still talking to them. So when they are ready, then that you're going to be the first person they think of. So okay. I think that's the thing for me.
If you're watching this and you're live with us, please do leave a comment. We would love to hear your comments, and we'll share them in this live. I think you raised a very important point, Karen, and that is timing, which is the timing of the customer's timing. And that is one of the big mistakes I think a lot of these metric-obsessed marketers tend to make, which is they try to cram the customer through their funnel on their schedule. But if we are a little bit more considerate of the customer's schedule and trying to fit into when they are ready to buy, their buying cycle rather than our sales cycle, that is something that is good to incorporate. Bobby, what are your thoughts?
Thanks for having me on the show today, mate. I think the world has changed so much, hasn't it? And when we talk about what the example you gave earlier about going to buy something from a store, now imagine walking to a Westfield and there's 5,000 shoe shops all in a row. We never had so much choice, and so having all this choice just makes us have to make so many decisions. And then it's kind of like, I don't really want to do it now, because is this kind of shoe, is this kind of shoe, then you've got the colors and you've got the brands, and so by having this funnel can really encapsulate those possible customers. And you're so right. I think that when you have that bottom part of the funnel, that's where you start to make the money. You get the clients, or you get the buyers. And even though the word funnel is probably not a most friendly word to use, but having several different funnels for different types of buyers. We have people who come on for recruitment and they go, oh, we're not quite ready yet. It's probably going to be 6 months. So they don't need such a pressured funnel, because we just need to want to touch base maybe every 3 weeks with a bit of a recruitment tip or something about the market. Whereas if we're talking about someone who said, okay, well, we want to hire in the next 4 weeks, we want to start in the next 4 weeks, their funnel will be something more pressurized. There's like, oh, the market is intense, you want to start the process before Christmas and things like that. So I think that as social media grows, there's going to be more and more and more of this, and you're going to need some sort of funnel, whatever you're going to call it, or whatever level you're going to put it in. And you can't, especially as a small business owner, you can't do it all. So even automation within that, and having something set up where we can just press a button and it's just going to put someone into that funnel, whether it's a funnel for buy in 4 weeks, buy in 6 months, or buy in 2 years' time. If we don't put things in front of people, there's so many options out there. You only have to go onto Google and type in lawnmowers, shopping, and then you can spend the next day just going through that. And it doesn't take much for that buyer to go, okay, well, I'm 2 steps away from buying. All of a sudden, someone else puts a fantastic deal in front of their eyes, and then they've gone. And so, you've got to be able to have something, or else people easily forget about you, because there's just so much noise. There's so much noise out there now.
Right.
And
so the challenge then is, how do you show up in a noisy world without being a pain? And it's a fine line, because you do want to keep showing up in front of your customer, because they may not be ready to buy today, but if they're ready to buy in 3 days' time and somebody else shows up while they are ready to buy, you miss out on the sale. And I think the answer is build a relationship over the long term and stay front of mind. But I like your analogy, Bobby, where you talked about 5,000 stores and all of a sudden there's so much choice. We are spoiled for choice, and the confused mind doesn't buy. So I want to put it to Colin and ask Colin, well, what do you think is a solution, Colin, to the problem that Bobby quite rightly raised, which is there's so much choice. How do we show up in a noisy world and not be a pain?
That's a really good question in this day and age. I'll go back into the old days because I can. I've got the grey hair. But the thing is, in the old days, we used to call it customer relationships. We didn't use funnels. Funnels is like, I'm going to go put some oil in the car. It's so impersonal. So I look at the thing is what it is about customer relationships. And I think for me personally, I look at what a lot of people offer as perceived value, not true value. In other words, I offer you a price. I'll say, oh, look, this is worth $8,000, but I'm going to sell it to you just today for $495, right? And that's a perceived value. I want to know, what is the real value to me? What is going to be my end game? Are you going to sell me a better shoe that helps me run faster because you've actually spent the time to go through, how my foot rolls in or whether it rolls out, and how's it going to help me? Am I a long distance runner or am I a sprinter? Because if I go online, there's none of that help available. I've got to make the choice as a customer in that.
Yeah.
And some people don't know what sort of shoe they want to. For some people, they might as well go out and buy the old Stolly sand shoe, the old white tennis shoe that people used to have, sort of thing, because it's just as effective, and it can be damaging to them because they don't know the difference. But if I can actually connect to somebody, if I can say, have that relationship, I get what I call true value. Yes. Because all of a sudden I can talk to you, I can gather you, and it's not an automated process. And I think we've become too reliant on an automated process, and we take away the humanity process. And I think that was the key to the old customer relationship. We kept in touch in a personal way. Now that may mean, do I send an email? Well, I'm sick and tired of being bombarded by emails of offers. But if I offer to talk to you about hey, why don't we discuss what you need with your shoe? What sort of shoe are you wanting? And all this sort of stuff. And you may be able to automate that, but I really get into depth about you personally. Then chances are I'll take you straight from the top of a funnel down to the bottom, because all of a sudden there is that real value I'm getting for you.
Right. So I think the word that you're alluding to, correct me if I'm wrong, is empathy. I think we need to really empathize with our audience and understand them. Going back to something that Bobby mentioned earlier on, having multiple funnels, I think, segmentation or tagging, using tagging strategies might help to be able to have relevant communication to people based on where they are on their journey and what their needs are. I like Ellison's comment, and he says, especially now that we have a lot of information, different products, we feel overwhelmed. A funnel helps us to organize the choices we have to make a better decision. And yes, I believe it does, but I think the onus is on us as the funnel builders to make sure that we are able to channel the right offers to the right people at the right time, and more importantly, not present the offers to the people who don't want to see them because it's not relevant to them. So customization can be used to our advantage, but it takes effort, it takes time, it takes a lot of research. Building an empathy map is very valuable, which we talked about in step 2 of our 9-step business growth framework, which I forgot to put at the start of this presentation. I also want to say that, Colin and I have been around for a bit. We don't look it, but, back in the 1800s when we used to have funnels, well, we didn't have funnels back then. Colin was a prolific runner, and he was not far off how many seconds did you take to do? How many minutes did you take to do a 5K, Colin? I can't remember.
14 minutes flat this time.
14 minutes flat, yeah. I mean, that in the 1800s, that was very fast, wasn't it?
Oh, mate, it was faster than me using the chisel on the stone that I used to type my stuff on.
I love it. Look, I think that brings up some really important points, right? The big takeaways for me are that we have a responsibility to do the research, to understand the customer, where they are on their journey, and then customize our funnels, which to me appear to be a necessary evil. I don't know that you can get away from them completely. And full disclosure, I am a HubSpot solutions provider, but that is because I really love what HubSpot is doing. And I really like their approach where they've sort of converted their funnels or sort of attached them to this CRM or customer relationship management system. And it's a continuum in a way. It's very hard to explain in words, but the software is good. It's not cheap, but it's good. Another person that I do, so I would love to hear some closing thoughts from each of you. Karen, I'll go back to you. What are your recommendations, and what's your big takeaway from this conversation? And also, before we go, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how our audience can find you? Who do you help, and how can they find you? Your email address, your website, whatever you want to share would be great.
Okay, that's lots of things, and I'll probably forget at least one of them. So just going back to one of the things that Colin said, I love systems, and I love trying to systemize as much as possible because I love technology. I really want to make things easy. I can be a little bit all over the place sometimes because I've got a million things going on in my head. But I think sometimes you can over systemize, and I've done that before. So I think it's really important what Colin said about, systems are great, but it's also making sure that you do have those personalized touches in there. And that could still be in a funnel. But I think just making sure that that you have that in the back of your mind. A couple of other things too. I think communication. I'm in HR. Communication is so important, and I think that's the thing. It is about communicating with the right people at the right time, and I suppose not bombarding somebody who you probably think is 6 months off wanting your solution. Bombarding them with daily emails, because I know if that's me, I'm probably unsubscribing pretty soon. So I always have that dilemma of feeling like I'm annoying people if I email them too much, you know, people that are in my list. So finding that right balance I find really challenging, but I think it's something that we sort of have to have a bit of a think about. Yeah, so I think that covers my takeaway and some thoughts. Who am I? You can probably see my name's Karen Hillen and my business is My HR Partner. I'm located in Australia. I provide HR services to businesses who need a HR solution, but either are not big enough for an internal HR solution, or they're just starting out. They're really small. They need some HR. They need some help, but they don't want to be signing up for anything that's expensive and long term. So I've got lots of different flexible solutions, from working with me on an ongoing basis all the way down to just booking into a 15-minute HR advice call.
And how do they find out about you, Karen? What's your email? What's your website?
Yep, it's myhrp.com.au.
Yep.
And if you go onto the website, there are links on there to be able to book in for a free call, and lots of information about all of my services.
Cool. Okay, let's go to Bobby next. Your key takeaways and how can people get in touch with you? Who do you help? And tell us a bit about you.
Thanks, mate. I suppose key takeaways is understanding the funnel, and it's not always about automation. It's not always about an email or a text. You can have multiple touch points, and that can be a phone call. It's going to come up in your CRM. You need to call this person today. And so you can still have that personal touch, even to the point of send a gift this day to this person, which is this gift. So just because we say funnel doesn't mean automation. And we have to look at also our market, who's buying from us. If we're talking about a 60, 70-year-old, it's going to be very different funnel to someone who is 15, 18, 20. You know, we talk about the younger generation, they're, you know, TikTok, Facebook, a lot of social media, they're probably used to that kind of stuff. So we need to probably do something a bit different to those guys, because they're so used to seeing those kind of things. And whereas if we're talking to someone in the 60s, 70s, they probably do want a phone call more than an email. And they'll maybe want to have a more structured conversation. So takeaway from it is, you know, it's not one rule fits all. It's about trying different things, measuring it and seeing how that works. But, you know, don't get stuck in the measuring. Try, you know, until something succeeds. Don't just stick around. So my name is Bobby Semple. I have a couple of businesses. One is Simplified Recruitment Solutions. We're a low flat fee recruitment company, and we service all of Australia, and we help our clients find great candidates, and we save them about 80% on traditional recruitment agency fees. And we're doing pretty well. We're about 85% success rate on that part at the moment, which is pretty good in this candidate-focused market. The other business I have is Feel Good Photos, which is an event photography business based in Brisbane. And we're looking to connect with wedding planners, event planners all around Australia, really. So Simplified Recruitment is www.simplifiedrecruitment.com.au. And you can reach out to us via the email on the website. And we have feelgoodphotos.com.au, and you can also reach out to us there. Thanks for having me on the show today, mate. I really appreciate it.
And I'm just going to get these up. So feelgoodphotos.com.au.
Yep.
Okay. Did I get that right?
Bang on, mate. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Emerson, over to you on closing thoughts and who you help and how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I love the thoughts that everyone's given this morning. For me, I think one of the most important things is identifying what my business is about and what is the ideal customer for my business, so that I can actually tailor the funnel to what my business can actually offer. For instance, if I'm selling a retail product, I'm selling these cheap glasses, you know, I can just put that up and just create a funnel to go and buy cheap glasses. But if I'm selling a high-end, you know, service-related business, then that's a different type of customer I've got to attract. Because, you know, we so often focus on getting people through the churn, getting it in and finding out the right customer through that. And I think the systems are great. But I've also got to say is if I spend the time to think about who exactly is the customer I'm trying to attract and what is the true value I'm going to offer that customer, then I can attract people to that funnel and set up a system that allows me to service that level of business that I want to actually service. For instance, Karen and Bobby, you were saying if they're not ready, and often they're not ready. They're coming, they're inquiring, they want to get to know you. Well, you're right. I can put it in my diary to phone them. I can send them that surprise gift. It's like, oh, why am I getting this? Wow, thank you. It's creating real value because you know exactly who your customer is. And I think sometimes so many people are learning how to put together a business. Well, I'll say they're learning how to actually sell something, but they're not understanding the aspects of business that allow that business to survive long term. And understanding your customer and looking at the processes and looking at how do I attract them and keep them in my business, then I don't have to worry about building a huge funnel and churning people through and disappointing.
It costs between 5 and 9 times more to acquire a new customer as it does to retain an existing one.
Absolutely. So if you're going to put a funnel together, you've got to start thinking about what is my customer, what is my ideal customer, what is the true value that I offer that customer in the long term, and how am I going to support them in the long term. And then what happens, you actually create a long-term business rather than a fly-by-nighter. And I think most of us in business want that long-term business.
Yes. Yes.
So
and profitable.
Well, no, who wants a profitable business? It's a tax write-off. Just look at, I was going to say Twitter, but I won't say Twitter. Just look at that as a tax write-off. Sorry. But the thing is, we want a profitable business. I'm Colin Emerson. I run several businesses. Isn't it amazing? We tend to run lots of businesses around us, but they have different purposes. There's Foundation Road, which is where I focus on leadership and organizational development workshops. And we deliver those either online or on site. And I'll travel anywhere in the US, Australia, and New Zealand. Actually, I'll probably travel anywhere to do that. There's Colin Emerson Speaker. I do conference speaking. I've been doing that for over 30 years now. And I also have Inner Sense Coaching, which is where I focus on executive and entrepreneur coaching. So it's a specialized target market that I have in regards to that. And you can contact, he's already got it up there, foundationroad.com. So thank you, Ash, for that.
You're welcome. No, it's a pleasure. I think you guys have all made some really valid points. Colin, I think your closing thoughts were right on point, which is building something that is long-term focused and being very conscious about who you want to work with, and then trying to nurture and cultivate a long-term relationship. The internet has created a sense of, in my opinion, a false sense of immediacy. And largely because there's a lot of scammers out there who are trying to give you the impression that you can make $1 million overnight. But the truth is, the internet is just another channel. And yes, it does reduce friction in some ways, and it does make it easier to access people at scale. But what seems to be overlooked quite often is that you still do need to deliver something meaningful, something of value, and you need to do it consistently over time. And that hasn't changed in business and probably won't, as far as I can see. Speaking of people who do provide great value, I just want to give a shout out to Pip Meacham. And I'm going to put, because Karen talked about systems, and she's not on this call. She doesn't know I'm doing this, but
Pip's awesome.
Pip is awesome. Both Karen and I have worked with her, and her company is called projectbox.com.au. And I'm just going to put that on here. And if you do get in touch with her, tell her I said she's awesome, because she is. And I think I'll leave it there. I think we'll wrap that up. If you're watching the recording, Thank you for watching it. Please do share it with somebody else. You can find out about me at productiveinsights.com. I guess I should share that. If you want to get access to the free 9-step business growth framework, you can just go to this URL and you can get a free email course. And because this is so important, we'll be doing this again on Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Sydney time, which is the same time as we started today. If you're watching in America or UK or whatever, that's whatever time it was today, same time in 3 days' time. So nice to see you all, and look forward to talking to you guys again on Tuesday. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Ciao for now.
Have a good weekend.
Same.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.